What's up, guys? It's John at National Sports Entertainment, and I wanted to do. I thought this would be an interesting idea because I like to explain what I think is going to happen with NFL, sports entertainment, just like I would explain WWE because I feel like they are one and the same. So we have four teams left, and I'm going to go into who I believe is going to win cover. I'm still trying to make up my final mind. Obviously, if you've been watching the channel, then you know since the preseason, I've been very, very firm on the Niners, and I've been firm on them Ravens, but more so the Niners. But Niners Ravens, I've been with all year, and now it's one game away. But I'm always open to reassessing, and I've been looking at a lot of things, and it's definitely one that I genuinely feel like we could get a lot of results here. So I'll be going into each game probably later in the week, and I'll be covering what I think makes the most sense for the Super Bowl matchups. There's a lot of interesting stories. There's the brothers dynamic. Obviously you got all these outside factors. You have different teams matching up. You have teams that have matched up before, teams setting history. A lot of things that go into account here. But if you don't watch wrestling, I'll do my best to explain the lore to you. But basically, with my way of thinking and how I view wrestling, and again, how I believe the NFL just copies wrestling, I have dedicated a tier, a wrestler, or a faction in some cases, for each one of these NFL teams that I think describes them pretty well and might help us pick the Super Bowl. So let's get started. And the reason I like Detroit and I akin them to Sami Zayn is because they are an underdog story. Sami Zayn is the ultimate underdog, and he's an underdog that people still believe can be and should be a world champion. But there's a few issues. He has almost everything you would need, but he just doesn't quite have it. He's not as much of a draw as these other individuals, and there's just a few people that I feel like, whether it be from paying dues or experience, just have a leg up on Sami. But at the end of the day, people rally behind Sami just like they're rallying behind Dan Campbell and the Lions. And I would say that they would be, quote, you talk about America's team, things like that. Detroit, of the four teams left, kind of fit that category. Now, Sami Zayn's Canadian, but my point being, Sami Zayn's just kind of the guy that he's the ultimate underdog. That used to be like Daniel Bryan, and people would love to see him do it, but in their heart, they know, okay, he's not going to be the next world champion. So I think that's the Lions, and that's really the one, in my opinion, the one conclusion I have come to, and it didn't take too long, but I did consider it. The other three is much more difficult, where I can effectively say I do not believe that the Niners are, or I'm sorry, the Niners. I do not believe that the Lions are going to be going to the Super Bowl, and I had them doing really well this year. I put out two, three separate videos in the preseason, telling people to take the over on their wins, to take them to win the division. They're probably going to win a game or two in the playoffs. All these things. It's just I don't think they're going. I think their Cinderella story ends here, elimination chamber style, like Sami Zayn, but a really good run. And that's just how I feel like the Lions are going to finish. So they're the one team I can effectively just completely eliminate. Next, we have CM Punk. And he's an interesting one. You really can't get a great read on CM Punk. But I think the Baltimore Ravens are CM Punk. Because just a mega draw, undeniably right now the number one, which is Lamar Jackson, of course. And you can argue the Ravens in general just by the teams they've beaten up. All these, including some of these other teams on the list. And CM Punk, he just came back, and while I think a lot of people think he could be the next guy, I think other people understand that he's probably not going to win the championship next. I think most people know Punk's going to do a few things, but he's not just going to win the championship. And Lamar, he came back from having the contract disputes, and now he had an amazing year. He won MVP. CM Punk's going to get his main event at WrestleMania, but he's not getting Roman Reigns. He's not getting the undisputed belt, and I do not believe that Lamar is winning the Super Bowl. So the Ravens, again, I can't even eliminate. I'm not saying they're not going to make the Super Bowl because I'm so tossed between them and the Chiefs right now. But this is going to help me, as we do this together. This is going to help me, I guess, decide between the Chiefs and Ravens. And I don't know how long it's going to take me, to be quite honest. I haven't looked into all the backstories and all the different narratives that each team offers. I try and stay away from the historical aspect just because they both have ties. Obviously, they played each other pretty recently. Both of them relatively recently. Obviously, the Chiefs Niners was more recent, but Ravens Niners have a lot of connections. So I'm going to look into stuff. I'm guessing, if I don't have I feel like by Wednesday, Thursday, I'm just going to go with my intuition if I don't have my mind made up, which would probably be just sticking with my original pick, which would be the Ravens. But anyway, so I think, again, the Lions are the easiest one to just kind of knock out. Ravens, again, I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl regardless. Next, we have Cody Rhodes. And I believe the Niners are Cody Rhodes. The Niners need to complete their story. It's been 3-4 times now that they've been this far. Different quarterbacks. It's just like they didn't have a piece every time. Now they finally seem to have it all together. And I just have a feeling that this is their year. They have Brock Purdy. Just again, America's underdog. It's Mr. Irrelevant. He can go from Mr. Irrelevant to Super Bowl champ, just like Cody went from Stardust to the Cody Rhodes we all know and love today. So I think the Niners fit Cody Rhodes very well. And that's why I have them 100%. I have them winning, as you guys know. I have them winning the Super Bowl. It doesn't matter, in my opinion, who it's against, because I just think they're going to win. So as you can see, I have some things made up. The only thing I'm just not certain on yet is if we're going to get Ravens and Niners or Chiefs and Niners. But Niners definitely go into the Super Bowl, in my opinion. That hasn't changed really at all throughout the season. People told me it was obvious, all these things. If you look at the lines right now, just so you know, Niners Chiefs is like plus 260. Niners Ravens is plus 100. And then the Lions are like plus 400 and plus 800. So even if it's obvious, are you going to bet a Super Bowl matchup that could go 4 different ways when you're just getting even odds? When you could just basically bet the Ravens game if you're going to do that. I just feel like you're better off doing something like that. So it just doesn't make sense. The line's very interesting. So there's a lot of things to take into account. But at the end of the day, I just don't completely buy the notion that, oh, it's too obvious. There's too much public money on it. Again, the Lions, you're paying out 8-1, so there might be more people on Niners Ravens, but it doesn't mean that that's the biggest liability. Now we have the Bloodline, and this is an interesting. It's almost a reversal, but it's not, because the Bloodline obviously has Roman Reigns and obviously all Paul Heyman. The Chiefs have Taylor Swift and Patrick Mahomes. They both have their tribal chief, and you could argue, well, the Roman's already champ, so the Chiefs are, you're saying the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl. I'm not, because the Chiefs are the reigning, defending, undisputed champs, as Paul Heyman would say, as is Roman Reigns. WrestleMania is coming up, and I do think Roman Reigns will lose his championship to Cody Rhodes, a la the 49ers. That all being said, the Bloodline is Roman Reigns at the end of the day. They are the number one benchmark of the show, in the NFL's case, of the lineup. Again, they have the tribal chief, both of them. Pat Mahomes is the guy. Everybody knows and understands that. You don't bet against him. He just wins and wins and wins, just like Roman Reigns. Again, you got the Kelsey gang. You got the Swifties. It's a nice little bloodline they have. They're very deep and definitely, just in my opinion, top draw as far as the public, whether it be merch sales, whether it be ratings. The Chiefs are always going to be that team. And over the course of the last several years, much like the Bloodline, they've been basically unstoppable. So I feel like this might help us. Oh, and these teams here, this is simply teams that have been eliminated. So if you just saw these logos and you're like, why are they in there? I can't get rid of the team, like the logo. So all I can do is just stick it down there where it's kind of out of the way. I didn't want people not like why are the Eagles down there? I figured you understood, but yeah, it's just these four teams, and based off of this, it helps a little because I can immediately eliminate the Lions. In my opinion, I just don't think it's going to be the Lions, and it just leaves the dark horse, even though they're again the ones that have been just kind of running roughshod. I would say CM Punk, the Ravens, just the dark horse in my opinion because people have told me multiple times, oh, the Ravens are so obvious or things like that, so they're not going to be representing the AFC, and I just think that's malarkey because I don't see how again the defending champions who just beat the Bills, who everybody believes to be the best quarterback, the best player in the league, who's always a Vegas odds-on favorite or slight underdog, but usually an odds-on favorite every year throughout the year to win the Super Bowl. I just can't see the Chiefs not also being obvious, especially when you understand it's scripted and all the things going on with Swift. So I don't think the Ravens are any more or less obvious than the Chiefs. I feel like the Chiefs have established the notoriety, which is why again they are currently at the head of the table. They are the reigning champs. But again, Cody's gonna complete his story. So what I can say, and I don't think this is going to change, and this is what I said at the beginning of the year, I just really believe the 49ers will be the Super Bowl champions. The Lions, again, I just don't think they're going to win. I didn't say that at the beginning of the year. I went into that in those videos, how they're going to do really well. But anyway, the Chiefs, I said this multiple times. I went further and said I thought they were going to have a bad season, but they are not winning the Super Bowl. Again, I just don't think they are. If they match up with the Niners or it's the Ravens, I don't think they are. So there's a lot of I guess questions that I have answered. Really, the last question that I have to answer is: are the Ravens going to beat the Chiefs? Am I going to stick with my original preseason prediction, or am I going to assess everything because Swift came into the picture, all these different things, and decide, you know what, Cody Rhodes versus Roman, the Bloodline versus San Francisco, that makes more sense. And if it is akin, then that would make more sense because obviously Cody's going to be fighting Roman. But it's just an interesting dynamic we have here. So I'll be really looking into the Chiefs and just what they're saying about them, the Ravens. They had all the sacrifices at the beginning of the year. Just seemed very interesting. Both teams are interesting. And I can go into all the different stuff later. Like Baltimore, San Francisco, you have a Dion connection, which haven't heard from him in a while, so you never know. And there's just connections all over the place. I always focus on the Niners and the gold in a political year. And then you have to look at Purdy versus Jackson, and then Mahomes versus Purdy, see what makes sense there. A narrative we did bring up that they were pushing 100%, which makes me like the Niners even more. They're already talking about how Purdy was the worst guy ever, in that performance. He got so lucky that he was able to get that last drive because he threw so many horrible plays that should have been intercepted, and he did. I mean, whether it was I think it was on purpose, but whether he just wasn't making the throws or he was making stupid throws, he was a complete liability out there. They can't win if he's playing this way. There's no way they'll be able to win the Super Bowl. That's basically all they're saying. So again, it just seems like I think Purdy's going to finish his story. I think he's going to, and the Niners, all these guys, Kittle, all these guys that have been there for a while, finally get it done and finally overcome the adversity, all year long. Just basically nobody, and even though people say they believe in the Niners, we're talking about fans that believe it's real. A lot of people like Purdy, but the second he started having a few setbacks, people were just like, yeah, he's not the guy, as they say now, he's not him. But this is what I think is a good distinction for each team, a good designation. You guys can let me know what you think. If you think maybe I'm disrespecting the Lions, again, I understand the history. but the history has already been made. They've already had an amazing run. There's just other draws out there that I think are going to be better sells at the end of the day. Again, the Ravens, a dark horse type deal, even though they're like the number one seed. It's just a weird situation because anytime you have the Chiefs in there and they're not the number one seed doesn't really feel like the number one seed. It's kind of like when the Warriors won, which again, the Chiefs are kind of giving me Warriors vibes from when they won. So I am way more, again, I'm open to the definite possibility that we get Chiefs Niners and maybe not Ravens Niners. Again, I'll know for sure once I look into everything, and if not, I'm just going to stick with my intuition. But yeah, I think this is how we have our teams established, and I thought it'd be a good way to kind of compare them. That way, you guys can give me your opinion. Let me know if you think one of these teams, maybe the Lions, are better than I'm giving them credit for, and there's you have history to prove it or whatever reason you like the Lions. I know lately a lot of people are telling me Chiefs Lions. One, it's the longest Vegas odds at plus 800. Two, I just don't think the matchup makes that much sense. Outside of the fact they played in week one, which is pretty interesting, but it's nothing crazy. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, there's with the Niners there, I just think you put them in there, and it makes much more sense than Ravens Lions or Chiefs Lions. Although again, it's kind of like Sami Zayn. You never know. They could always pull that plug and surprise people. They did it with Daniel Bryan. I just feel like it's not the Lions term. They're actually a case because you don't see it often. But they're actually a case where I feel like they could just go to the Super Bowl next year. I don't know why I feel that way. I feel like they definitely might just be even better next year and just kind of improve by like a game or two and be the best team in the NFC next year after the Niners finally get to complete their story. That's how I'm looking at it. Anything can happen, of course. But yeah, let me know what you think. I will have the games, of course, like who I think is going to win, if I think is going to cover all that stuff, over unders, like I always do. I'll have that out, like I said, probably by like Thursday at the latest. I usually do it. I like to do it a couple days before Saturday. We can kind of see where the line's at, maybe get some good lines before it moves and we might get hooked. And B, just because, I like people to have as much time as possible. But yeah, as always, let me know what you think. And as I said before, I'll get back to NBA. I've just been, as I've said multiple times, busy. We've been doing a lot of different things. And with the NFL playoffs, there are so many things that go into these teams. I could do it such an in-depth, you know, journalistic dive into all four of these teams, and there's so much that makes sense for all of them, of course, and that's the whole purpose. You got to make them all have selling points where any one of these teams makes sense. It's not like it when the Packers were in here and the Browns and teams that we really knew, okay, this team's not going to do it. They might make a little bit of a run, but they're not going to. And I didn't even think they'd make runs because it would have made the playoffs much less interesting. Now we have such an interesting dynamic here. So, yeah, let me know what you think, and take care and happy earnings.